A witch hunt about all the recent stuff that we do. We don't need to necessarily go into the details, but I certainly felt that A, maybe women might actually resign quicker, and B, there's probably a witch hunt. I know, I think you guys.
I was interested in what you were saying earlier on about you almost felt, I'm not winning here. I'm trying. I mean, I heard you one morning, and you were on the breakfast programme, you then went to the Today programme, you then on Friday, and you really were being thrown around. And I suppose, did you at one point just think, I can't do this anymore? I'm trying to explain and no one's listening.
One of the main reasons why I resigned as Home Secretary, I mean there are two main reasons. One of them was that I had a very clear idea about what I thought I needed to do, what I thought the Prime Minister wanted me to do. It involved me actually being able to get out and about, to talk to people about crime, immigration, terrorism. And actually, because of my circumstances and the situation, I was finding it very difficult to do that. And, I was never interested in doing the job simply for the status. I was interested in doing it in order to make the changes and have the conversations and do the things that I wanted to do. And when I couldn't do that, I felt, perhaps this is the time now to step back. Difficult decision, because you feel a sort of sense of responsibility. Certainly as first woman Home Secretary, I felt, am I letting everybody down? Because I had a fantastic amount of support. Lots of people, including people that came up to me on trains and said, stick with it, don't step down. And you feel a bit as if you're letting people down. So it's a very difficult decision, and I think this is probably what you were touching on earlier, Jo. The other reason I felt I needed to resign was I couldn't have done everything that I've done over the last 12 years without immense support from my family, husband, kids, and they've enabled me to do a lot of what I've been able to do. And they were having a very hard time as well. And in the end, I sort of thought, well, it's probably time that I gave back a bit of support to them for the support that they've given me, and that was the other reason.
You must feel bitter though, because I still think if the roles have been reversed, I don't think if say your husband, you've been the wife, I don't think you'd have stepped down. I don't think rather the public would have cared about you stepping down. I think as a woman, I think you would have heard a lot more. I really do believe that. Do you feel that, or do you feel bitter?
I don't feel bitter. I feel disappointed that I'm not doing a job that I really, really enjoyed anymore. I don't feel bitter. Somebody gave me a very, very good bit of advice when I was sort of weighing up whether or not to step down, and they said, well, make the decision, or whatever decision you make, don't be bitter about it, because that just wastes your time, doesn't it? I mean, if I'm bitter about a decision that I've made, it just uses up my energy, which I'd rather be using on something positive. So I made the decision, I did it. I'm not that ancient, so I've got the opportunity, I think, to do other things, and that's what I'm going to get on with doing.
Jacqui, can I ask you, how difficult was it, how torturous was it to make that decision? Because obviously everything that you've achieved versus supporting your family, it couldn't have happened just overnight, could it? It probably, did you wake up at 3 in the morning and go, right, I've made it, but you're in a cold sweat?
I woke at 3 o'clock in the morning quite a few times, I think it's fair to say.
So we all do it then. Fabulous.
And I had to, first of all, I had to, if you're a Home Secretary and you resign, it's quite a big story, as we discovered at the time I did it. And I actually had made the decision sometime previously. It took me a bit of time to persuade the Prime Minister to let me do it, because of course he has to accept your resignation. And then I had to think, well, what's the best time to announce it? That didn't quite work as it should have done, but I had to think about all those things. So, I gave it quite a lot of thought. But in the end, you have to stop agonising, decide, and do.
I think we were just discussing as well about that very difficult day, and if you could share with everybody else a story about, we gave you some advice, about when you think you're going to cry, what do you do? So I don't want to steal all the bits and pieces. I thought this, like I said, we're all human beings at the end of the day, but if you wouldn't mind sharing that, I thought that was really cool.
All of us will have, whether or not it's a media interview or a meeting with a boss, or perhaps a meeting where we're having to say something difficult to somebody. And I know that now we're all modern women, none of us ever sort of break down or cry in public, oh no. But the really good advice I had on that day was to take with me, they said a drawing pin. In the end, I took a little badge, those badges which you've got sort of spikes on them that you put through your lapel. And if you feel like you're sort of a bit, you just stick it into your hand. And the secret, I know I can let you into a secret. If you look at the BBC Breakfast interview that I did on that day, you can see my hand down beside me, so going like that. That's me sticking a pin into myself.
Do you think at home for all of this that the really challenging times, the difficult interviews, have actually made you stronger though as a result of it? Because you've just had to face some of those things that you never thought you'd have to face.
People do say, don't they, what doesn't destroy you makes you stronger. I think I've learned some lessons. I hope I have demonstrated to myself, and I hope to others, that you can go through very difficult times and you can survive. I've learnt about what's important to myself. I've learnt about who my friends are. I've got new coping strategies. I've got to that stage now of thinking, oh my God, nothing can... It helps you because you think, oh, well, nothing's ever going to be as bad as that. You have to be a bit careful with that one, because I said that a few times over the last 6 months, and then something was worse than that. And I think you've just got to... I'm a big believer in get on with it, and although it's not always easy to get up in the morning when you know you've got a hard day, almost invariably, once you actually start doing it, start moving forward, you feel better about the things that happen.
And it must have been hard for your boys, because you've got a 16-year-old and 11-year-old, and you're still mum, aren't you? And that must have been difficult for them.
Yeah. I think that anybody who's got any sort of public profile, sometimes what's worse almost when the going gets tough is almost not what you feel about yourself, because although those things hurt, we were talking earlier on about people quite often don't think of you as a human being as well as a politician or a senior business person or whatever. But when your family get upset about things that are said about you or that are happening, that is the most difficult time.
Yeah, you have to go to school and know what's going on.
But they're also, they were also very, very supportive and very, keep at it, Mum, and we're really proud of you, and things like that.
So. Your husband was very supportive, wasn't he, in one way?
Yes, we'll talk about how supportive Jacqui's husband's been after lunch, I think, and how that works. We thought it was fabulous. But just before we go into lunch then, can you share with us what's it like in that cabinet room? I was watching some footage, on the videos and stuff, and I just think, is it like just a testosterone fuel? Is it, how do you get your point across? Yeah, how do you get your point across when do they yell at each other? I don't know, do they?
Oh, no, people don't yell at each other. I mean, it's like, frankly, it's quite like almost any sort of business meeting you'll ever go into. I mean, the first thing to know, of course, is that you've got this funny long table like that. The most senior cabinet ministers sit directly opposite the Prime Minister. Remember that, that's one of those tips they always give you, isn't it? If you're in a business, you go into the business meeting, sit opposite the person you're trying to influence. It's because the current Prime Minister, bless him, likes to invite lots of other people to come to cabinet. He's a little bit cramped. I used to have Alistair Darling on my right and Peter Manson on my left. Neither of those are people that you really feel like shoving your elbow in and say, just move along a bit. There are, on the whole, also like a lot of other meetings I've ever been in, quite a lot of the business is done before and after and outside the meeting, as well as inside the meeting. I don't think you ever gain by not speaking up, but I think you need to balance saying something that is good value and pithy against going on too long. Because also, and I won't name any names, like any other meeting I've ever been in, there are certain people who start speaking and everybody sort of goes, even around the
Who is it?
table.